Welcome to the UFC Perth prop drop, where I briefly go over every single matchup on the card from a props perspective, just to give you guys a little bit of insight on how I expect some of these fights to play out and how we can take advantage of it by honing in on props rather than just the money lines or parlaying some of these fights. So without further ado, let's get right into it. The first matchup up is going to be between Alexia Thainara and Loma Lookboonmee. Thainara should have a decided grappling advantage. Obviously, her size and strength will come into play as well, and I expect her to get the smaller and shorter Lookboonmee to the ground early and often, and I think that will eventually lead to Thainara finding a submission opportunity and forcing the tap from the Muay Thai fighter. You can get Thainara by submission at plus 310. And then on the flip side, if Lookboonmee wins, she does have the striking advantage, but she doesn't have a whole lot of power to go with it. So I think if she wins, probably looks with her stopping the takedowns or working back to her feet pretty quickly and then outstriking Thainara on the feet and winning on the scorecards, which you can get at plus 280. Next up, we got the low-level heavyweight matchup here between Brando Pericic and Alicia Ellison. I really like the fight to not start round 2 at minus 130. I'm expecting some chaos from jump here, and I'd be surprised if this gets past that 5-minute mark. But I'm actually liking the underdog here. I believe the explosivity, speed, and power of Ellison will allow him to catch that early shot here against Pericic and probably put him away. But there are a handful of props that I really like for this spot, so hear me out. Ellison round 1 plus 450. Ellison round 1 knockout plus 500. And the other one, conspiracy hat kind of takes here. Ellison trains alongside Chase Hooper under Jeff Hoagland as well, former UFC fighter. And we've seen him threaten with takedowns and submissions in the past. And that's also what caught Pericic off guard in his lone defeat as well. You can get Ellison by submission at plus 1,600, which I think is a crazy number. Ellison round 1 submission plus 3,000. Ellison round 2 submission plus 5,000. On the flip side, if Pericic wins, I think it probably comes by round 1 knockout, which is only at a measly plus 170. All right, next up, we have the UFC debut of Michelle Montague, who comes in with a 6-0 record, all 6 wins coming by rear naked choke. She takes on UFC veteran Luana Carolina. Now, the interesting thing about this matchup that a lot of people should keep their eye on is the fact that Montague is going to be coming down to 135 pounds for the first time in her MMA career. On the flip side for Carolina, after multiple weight misses and issues at 125 pounds, she's going to be forced up to 135. So there should be a strength advantage here for Montague, which is what I'm assuming she's going to look to use to try to stay away from the striking advantage of Carolina. And I think that could lead to another Montague submission victory. You can get that submission prop at plus 180. You can get Montague round 1 sub at plus 450. And then on the flip side, I think there's a couple different ways Carolina could pull this off. Outstriking Montague, winning this fight on the scorecards at plus 310. In case Montague's weight cut does not go that great and she starts to slow down and, is pretty much a sitting duck, Carolina could absolutely pull off a TKO here, which you can get at plus 1100. And then if you want to mix in round 3 KO, you can get plus 4,500 on Carolina there. So a couple of different ways you could take it here. But, if Montague has a good enough weight cut, she makes the weight without too much issue, she should be okay to go out there and pull off that early submission victory. Our next up, we got Josias Musasa going up against Colby Thicknesse. I'm expecting violence in this matchup, so at minus 115 for the under 2.5, I'm happy to take a shot there. I think it's going to be Musasa's raw power that ends up getting him that big knockout here over Thicknesse, and you can get Musasa to win by knockout at plus 195. And as we saw in Musasa's last loss, the defensive submission game is still a bit of a question mark for him, and you can get Thicknesse to win by submission at plus 600. Our next up, we got Jamie Mullarkey going up against Rolando Bedoya. I do believe Mullarkey is the better all-around mixed martial artist, but it's really his durability that we really need to focus in on and hope he can actually take a few punches here, which he's inevitably going to eat from the aggressive style of Bedoya. I think if Mullarkey wins, it's going to be too hard to put Bedoya away, so it probably comes on the scorecards, which you can get at plus 175. And then on the flip side for Bedoya, I think the only way he wins is if he uncorks a big shot and takes advantage of the sketchy durability of Mullarkey, and you can get Bedoya to win by knockout at plus 320. All right, next up, we got a middleweight clash here between Andre Petroski and Cam Rowston. I see a lot of people shitting on Petroski here for some reason, and I don't completely get it. This is a massive step up in competition for Rowston, whereas Petroski has the perfect type of game to really muzzle the length and reach of Rowston. Rowston normally looks to get his fights to the ground, but I think he's going to struggle to out-wrestle Petroski, so he's going to be forced to strike with him. But I think Petroski will be able to throw big shots in return and inevitably change levels, drag the fight to the ground, and grind Rowston out to a decision victory, which you can get at plus 155. On the Rowston side of things, like I said, I think he needs to get his striking going and hope to knock Petroski out, and you can get Rowston to win by knockout at plus 440. Next up, we got Navajo Stirling going up against Rodolfo Bellato. I really expect Stirling to cruise in this matchup as he is a far superior striker to Bellato, and I think he has this takedown defense and grappling defense to shuck off any attempt Bellato may be looking to go for there. I like Stirling. I think he finds that button on Bellato. We've seen some decent durability from Bellato as of late, but he does get hurt and rocked in a lot of his fights. I just don't think he'll be able to get away from it here against Stirling. So I'm going to go Stirling by knockout, which you can get at plus 115. On the flip side, if Bellato wins, that's probably meaning that he's able to really wear Stirling down in the clinch, land some big shots of his own, maybe land a few takedowns. But if he wins, it probably comes on the scorecards, which he can get at plus 490. Next up, we got a banger of a matchup here between Tom Nolan and Charlie Campbell. This should primarily be a striking battle that I think Nolan will end up getting the better of, but I wouldn't rule out any potential Nolan takedowns, just as we saw him do against his last opponent. And I think we even saw him threaten with a few submission attempts, which he might be able to land here. But I think it's going to be the knockout for Nolan that ends up getting his hand raised, which you can get at plus 200. But if you think Nolan can pull off his first submission victory as a pro, considering how active he is with trying to get that front choke series going, you can cash that ticket at plus 950 if he ends up getting the tap. On the flip side, we've seen Nolan get hit, and Campbell is definitely worthy or capable of landing a big enough shot to put Nolan away, and you can get Campbell to win by knockout at plus 290. Next up, we got a heavyweight matchup between Justin Tafa and UFC newcomer Louis Sutherland. I believe this is a perfect matchup for Tafa to get back onto his winning ways, and this is a very good stylistic matchup for him to chip away at the lead leg of Sutherland and then eventually uncork a big bomb and come through with another round one knockout victory, which you can get at plus 320. I believe all four of Tafa's wins have come within 2 minutes, so I think once he gets this job done, it'll be pretty quickly. And then on the flip side, if Sutherland can really nullify that early punching power of Tafa, mix up the game well enough, I think it'll take him to the scorecards to win this fight, which you can get at plus 310. All right, next up, we got Jake Matthews going up against Neil Magny. Fun fight here between veterans who have been in the UFC for 10, 13 years at this point in time. I think even longer than that for both these guys. But I think it's going to be Matthews' well-rounded game that ends up getting him a decision victory here, which you can get at plus 140. If you think he is aggressive enough with his BJJ game to catch Magny in some sort of submission, you can cash that ticket at plus 360. On the flip side for Magny, we know his style. Either he just puts together a good body of work over the last 2 rounds in fights and wins fights on the scorecards, which you can cash a ticket here at plus 650, or he wears Matthews down, shucks off all of the takedown attempts of Matthews, keeps him working, and then maybe overwhelms him in deep water. You can get Magny round 3 at plus 2200 or just Magny KO at plus 900. All right, next up, we got Jack Jenkins going up against Ramon Taveras. Jenkins, clearly the better all-around mixed martial artist. Taveras, obviously, being forced to come up to 145 pounds here after a lot of struggles to make 135 pounds over his UFC career or even on the Contender Series. But I think Jenkins will be able to mix his calf kicks and takedowns and control time enough to really keep Taveras on the defensive for the majority of this fight. You can get Jenkins to win by decision at plus 145, Jenkins to win by KO at plus 250 in case his calf kicks really catch up to Taveras and make him a sitting duck. And then on the flip side for Taveras, I think his only real chance of winning this fight is if he's unable to uncork a big shot with his boxing and find a knockout. And that line actually sits at plus 850, which I think is a little bit wide here. So a good hedge opportunity if that's what you like. All right. Next up, co-main event in the light heavyweight division. We got Jimmy the Brute Crute going up against Ivan Erslan. Kind of surprised that we're getting this Crute subline at plus 280, which I think is a pretty damn good spot. I know Erslan is strong and kind of difficult to get the initial takedown, but if Crute stays on him, mixes in his aggressive striking style to change levels at good moments, I think he can get that dominant position to eventually find that submission, like I said, which you could get at plus 280. On the flip side, if Erslan wins, I think it's him uncorking a big shot on Crute and eventually getting him out there by knockout, and you can get that line at plus 290. All right. Let's get to the main event now, where I'm not a big fan of a lot of these props here. I'm expecting this fight to finish inside the distance. I'm expecting Ulberg to eventually get that knockout here over Dominic Reyes, but that line is only at minus 125. In case Ulberg takes it a little bit too cautiously and really just picks apart Reyes from distance and just puts together a good body of work, you could also get Ulberg to win by decision, which is at plus 500. But that's a tough ask for, two guys that hit as heavy as both these guys do to go 25 minutes without getting a finish. And then, on the Reyes side, you're getting a pretty damn good line on his KO prop, which you can get at plus 410. He's fast, he's athletic, he's capable of landing that big shot, so that outcome would not at all surprise me. All right. Let's get into our top 3 prop spots and long shot for this UFC Perth card. Just a quick recap of the last event. We go 0-2 on the top 3 prop spots. That is because the Zachary Reese round 1 knockout ends up being nullified, voided due to the no contest after that groin kick that stopped the fight. But we missed out on Elise Pereira by knockout at plus 420 and Tatiana Suarez by sub at plus 155. The first one, I'm ashamed of the Elise Pereira confidence that I had there. And then Suarez, I'm very surprised that she was unable to get the finish. And then we almost had Kelvin Gastelum round 3 knockout at plus 1300 as our long shot. I just wish he showed a little bit more aggressiveness, because I think he would have gotten Stoltzfus out of there. So we go winless on that segment. So let's see if we can turn it around here, and I feel good about some of these spots here. Let's get right into it. First one up, we got Alexia Thainara by submission at plus 310. Then we got Josias Musasa and Kobe Thicknesse under 2.5 at minus 115. Then the third one we're going to go with is Justin Tafa, round 1 knockout at plus 320. The long shot we're going to go with, and this one, it was tough to really settle on a long shot for this one, or at least for this card. Not a big amount of confidence in it, but I see the angle, so I'm going to take the bite. Alicia Ellison by submission at plus 1,600. If he looks to get this to the ground, it is absolutely a possibility, and that is something he could do here. Who knows? All right. There's your UFC Perth prop drop. I dropped my LFA breakdown earlier today. I dropped my Cage Warriors breakdown yesterday. It's been such a busy week. Your boy is dying over here. Not only did I have the sickness at the beginning of the week, but it's been absolutely brutal to try to get through all of this work for you guys. Didn't help that we didn't do the greatest on PFL Europe this morning, so really bummed about that. But we still got PFL Mina, Cage Warriors, LFA, and UFC Perth to try to close out this weekend strong. You can find all my track plays for that stuff on the MMA LOT and Patreon page. Otherwise, good luck on all your action this weekend, folks, and I'll be back Sunday for the Week 8, I believe it is, Contender Series breakdowns. I'll see you guys then. Peace.